Okay, good evening, Reds. Welcome to Jarvis Corner. This is the place where we steer clear of sensationalizing the latest for clicks, likes. Instead, we are joining us into a deeper layer of search for truth and knowledge, because this is a space to gain a broader perspective of football and Manchester United. So today we will talk a little bit about Ten Hag losing the locker room, losing the players. We will talk a little bit about what happened in the game against Newcastle. We will speak about the latest with Jim Ratcliffe and his 25% rumors. And we will delve into it. I have a group of good panel members, Mark, Tom Journalist, and Uncle Jimmy. So stay tuned, and we'll see you right after the intro.
There is nothing wrong with your television set. Do not attempt to adjust the picture. We are controlling transmission. If we wish to make it louder, we will bring up the volume. If we wish to make it softer, we will tune it to a whisper. We will control the horizontal. We will control the vertical. We can roll the image, make it flutter. We can change the focus to a soft blur, or sharpen it to crystal clarity. For the next hour, sit quietly and we will control all that you see and hear. We repeat, there is nothing wrong with your television set. You are about to participate in a great adventure. You are about to experience the awe and mystery which reaches from the inner mind to
Good evening, Reds. Welcome to Mufc Realist TV and Jarvis's Corner. So, are you ready, guys? How are you doing, Mark?
I'm good. Big up, everyone. Big up to the VR room. Big up to you, Jarvis, and Tom, journalist. What's up, my bro?
Yeah. Big up, Tom. Are you here?
Yeah. Big up, guys. Not bad.
Cool.
Cool,
Mr. Sheffield himself. So, how's the Seven Hills?
Yeah, it's pretty cold, to be fair. I'm not going to lie.
Cold.
I don't know if it's cold as Norway or Scandinavia, Jarvis, but we'll move with it.
Tom, I'll tell you, this morning it was minus 10 degrees. Now it's minus 15. So you can't complain.
Get the heating on.
Yeah. It's winter now. It's December. So this is the worst time of the year. And now in a couple of days, winter darkness starts. So it will be, 40 days without sun. So, it is what it is. But at least I have you guys to keep me warm and happy and inspired and Man United.
100%.
So, Mark, what is the chat saying?
Oh, well, let's start with Yarli Malmin. He's coming in early, and he's saying, interesting news. Erik Ten Hag has lost 50% of the dressing room. We kind of see that in the Newcastle game. Do not need to leak for something like that when it shows with what shows on the pitch. Erik Ten Hag looks to be a dead man walking. So far, that's what Yarli's coming in saying. I don't know what everyone else is saying. Stephanie's saying big up to Jarvis, and the VR rumors big up to Tom. You know what I mean? Fox is saying time to sack the owners, the board, the CEO, the scouts, the manager, the coaches, the players, and start again. You know, Sanjay is saying good evening. Rebbe is saying big up to everyone. Ian McDonald is saying he's looking forward to this one, and I am too. Red U is coming in, Player Power FC. You know what I mean? Unless United is coming in, Yarli, I don't believe in that nonsense. You know, it's a lot going on here. You know, I see Mark Davies has a good question. He says, good evening, guys. Is this true about Ten Hag being sacked this week? Ten Hag in for me. It's the players who are throwing Ten Hag under the bus. What are your thoughts, Tom, so far on what the VR room is saying?
Yeah, listen, we've known for time, guys, that the players have been the problem, but no person has been accountable inside the football club to say, look, we need to change and get rid of her. And it comes from the top. It does come from the ownership. But based upon the way that we're playing at the moment and we're not getting results, it is going to fall on the manager, unfortunately. And if the select few players aren't playing for him, don't pick them. It's as simple as that. He can make the decision. It's not as if somebody's got a gun to his head in the football club. If you don't want to play Marcus Rashford, yeah, you might cause a stir up with maybe somebody who might want you to play an academy player or your protege player in the team. That's fine, but get rid of him. If you don't think he's putting in 110% effort in for you, and it's not just about with Erik Ten Hag being successful at United. It's just about staying in the job at this point now. Play somebody else then. At the end of the day, he can make the decision to do it. So if he thinks that the players are underwhelming and underperforming for him, or he's lost a lot of them, fine, get rid of them for the time being and play some people that will play for you. Then it's as simple as that.
100%. And I see Neil Driscoll is coming with the opposite of the comment, saying, "I'm Erik Ten Hag out. Had enough of him and the shite players. Today has not been a good day for me. Could not go to the funeral because of the weather. Was bad rain everywhere, flooding. Must be bad. Sorry to hear that about the funeral, Neil. Hope you ended up having some form of consolation, my guy."
Yeah, everybody in the live chat, smash a love heart for Neil Driscoll. He's a legend of the channel and needs some love at this moment. So big up Neil Driscoll.
I see John Johnson. Yeah, I see John Johnson is coming in. He's saying, "Evening all. Same pattern with these players. They will get another manager sacked." I will add, though, Ten Hag is not helping himself. I think he totally agrees with Tom, picking Rashford, McTominay, and while he's been solid. You know what I mean? So I agree. I think, some of the players need to be shipped out. I think they could have backed the manager more, but the manager is going to be held responsible for the results we're having. It's not been good. Like you're going to mention later on, we're not doing so well in terms of shots faced. I think we're third, and in the league, that's a terrible stat. You know what I mean? And it's just disappointing right now, but I think it's a long road ahead, and you could only stay positive and think that, hopefully he will just be ruthless, drop the players that aren't going to play for him, play the youth. I mean, you played them in preseason. They didn't look too bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
At least you get behind something.
But for me, the problem is we have seen this before. We have seen these leaks. We've seen this movie. We know what's going to happen. We know what is expecting us the next couple of weeks, couple of months before. So for me, I believe I see what I see, the patterns. We saw it with Solskjaer. We saw it with Mourinho. We even saw it with Van Gaal. And now we are at it again. And I'm quite frankly, I'm getting tired of this. At the moment, Ten Hag, he's not getting the results. He's not getting the best out of the squad. He picks the wrong players. They're not playing for him, it looks like. But there's a big but. It's time to break the cycle for me. Let's just be clear. I believe we should just keep Ten Hag at least out the season and then assess, because everything has gone wrong this season with injuries. We had a terrible preseason. Players was knackered after last season. The transfers we got them in late, both with Højlund and Amrabat, and it's so many things that plays into it. So for me, it's too early to write Ten Hag off. Maybe he needs to change his way. Maybe he's too stubborn. But give him time to make these mistakes, because I don't think it's the right season for us to, when we started this season, I didn't think we were going to compete for the title. We are building, we are in a process. So for me, I believe it's time to let him make a couple of mistakes. Why not let him make mistakes this season, and then we will assess. That's just my thoughts of the process, because we're in the process. And why are we always this impatient? Tom, do you know why are the fan base always impatient when it comes to management? Do we want instant gratification and instant results? Is that what we have become?
As a club, that's what we've always had. Like if you go back a decade, ever since then, United haven't really ever done anything. And even to due respect to what Ferguson did, he didn't exactly leave a talented pool of players for the next manager to pick up with and take on for 5-6 years. He basically was on the scrap heap with very average British players, but he just made them look a lot better than they actually were. And you come to the point where you are now, where you have a lot of the squad where it is just, it's almost as if it's entitlement. I'm at Manchester United and I should play. I'm on, XYZ amount of week. I wear the number 10 shirt, the number 9 shirt. I'm so-and-so. This is my brand and this is me. Like, that shouldn't be the way that it is at any football club, let alone Manchester United. You need players who are going to play for the manager under a set style of play, with the way that he wants to play. And listen, we can get into it about the sort of players that he's bought and everything, and whether I think that they're the right sort of players. But to answer the question, really, Man United fans, we should be a little bit impatient. Listen, we've waited 10 years to try and be successful again. And it is getting frustrating. And you can only point the fingers to too many more people to say, well, if the owners ain't going anytime soon, nothing's going to change from the top. Ineos look like they're going to come in and maybe make some structural changes. We'll see if that makes a difference or not. And if it doesn't, you're just going to be back with the same problem. But at this point in time right now, Erik Ten Hag, with the players that he's done, with the players that he's got right now, he won't make it till the end of the season. If he's lost half of them already, he's blown up a trumpet with, Jesus Christ, I don't know how many players he's had an argument with or a bust-up with. And at the end of the day, you only can piss off a couple of people to the point where they're just going to turn on you completely. And at the end of the day, we've been here before, like you said, Jarvis. So United fans, we're going to be impatient. We want to win. And at Manchester United, it shouldn't be a simple case of you need, 5-6 years to build a team or build a squad to go and win something. It should literally, with the money that we make, Jarvis, and that we've spent, we've spent more than our rivals have, and they've won so much more in the last 10 years than we have. It shouldn't even equate to anything like that.
Yeah, well, you mentioned words like shouldn't, but for me, it's the reality we live in, and we have seen this before. What did it get us? How we sacked Louis van Gaal while winning the FA Cup. We brought in Mourinho. We won a League Cup and the Europa League. We brought in Solskjaer. We won nothing. So changing managers hasn't given us nothing, except for a squad that's really unbalanced and from different managers, and most of them are on fantasy wages. And my question is, how does Manchester United approach contracts and wages? Because they reflect the team's performance in a way they should, but we are fostering mediocrity, because through a reward system. Because if you reward mediocrity is what you get in a way. And what's your thoughts about the contracts and the wage system in the club, and what are the thinking behind it?
Personally, myself, I'd do what German clubs do. I'd put a cap on it. You don't pay anybody over 250 grand a week unless they're going to be a superstar special player for you. You can make an exception, for example, with what Bayern did with Lewandowski over the years and what they've done with Muller and Neuer. Like special players like that, you have to keep at your club over a long period of time. So you're going to have to pay them more. Harry Kane's no different in the way that they bought him out of Spurs, brought him to Bayern. Dortmund do it perfectly with it, where they have the young, hungry players and then they progress. And then over time, if they wanted to offer them a more lucrative contract, they're going to have to pay them more money. But they don't do that, Dortmund. They just sell them on after that point because they've got the full potential, and then they get the money out of the players in the end. So they make a profit over the time. Leipzig is exactly the same. Me personally, I'd just put a cap on the whole thing. Put a cap on it. You're not going to have any entitled, spoiled players who think that they've made it just because they're on 350 grand a week. They've signed for another 4 years at this football club. It shouldn't happen like that anyway. And at the end of the day, agents have taken the mess out of Manchester United for years and years. Mino Raiola, God rest his soul, he was the best at it, if we're being honest with you. He clowned around with the Pogba contract for years, and he ended up getting Pogba when he should have been on about 250 at the time when he was coming back. He got him all the way up to 500 at one point, and everybody's looking at it and thinking, how was he nearly doubled what he should have got over the contract? It shouldn't happen. But in terms of contracts and everything, listen, that goes beyond the coach. The coach, listen,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, the manager, he needs to just coach the players in the training field. Don't get involved in the transfer strategy. Don't be recruiting players. Just focus on a set style of play and get the players that you have right now. Get the best out of them. But it's almost as if he's having to juggle so many different jobs because everybody else above him is incompetent. But he's never been used to that before. He had everything done for him at Ajax. The players were recruited for him. He had the exact same say as the sporting director on what recruitment that they had. And the CEO let them run the football operations, him and the sporting director, Van der Sar, him and Overmars. So it's something that he's not used to at the end of the day. But the only way, Jarvis, anyway, just probably to add to that, is that it had changed, is you need a sporting director to come in and a new CEO to come in and say, listen, we're doing things differently. We want to renegotiate player contracts, or listen, you can be on 375 grand a week, but we want to cut you down to a minimum of 300, and you can have that extra 75 if you play 30 games a season for United, or you score 10 plus goals for United, or the whole team gets 10 clean sheets.
So you want to add a bonus?
Yeah, add a
bonus,
bonus loyalty, but you can use that instead of just saying to the players, look, we're completely cutting your wages down in half. If they don't make the Champions League anyway, it's going to happen to them. But cripple them some more. They deserve it at the end of the day. You can't go down directly to the manager as you have done, and the sort of wording that's coming out like, "Oh, we're running too hard. It's getting too hard." You're at Manchester United, for Christ's sake. You're going to work hard. You're going to be pushed to your limits. High performance. The funny thing is, guys, and I'll make this last point. Brighton's training ground is named Brighton Hove Albion High Performance Training Facility. High performance. That's Brighton Hove Albion, who've only been in the Premier League about 5-6 years. Man United's been in the Premier League God knows how long, won how many trophies. But because it doesn't say high performance on the side of it, what you play is when you roll up in your Rolls Royces or your Range Rovers, you think you're entitled. It shouldn't happen like that. At the end of the day, player consistency should be you work for a big club, so you're going to work hard to stay at this big club. And if you're not good enough, pay them off. Get rid of them. At the end of the day, I know if you have a proper sporting director in place, they'll get you a player who's just as good as them. Anywhere in world football, they'll find that player because there's the right profiles out there that can get you the players that you need. So for me, if we're going forward with Ineos and this new structuring, Ten Hag, mate, get your hands off of the database for players, coach what you have, and let the sporting director, you tell him what your style of play is and how you want to play, and he'll find you players to play that way. And if it goes, pardon my language, if it goes tits up from there, well, then you can blame the sporting director then, if it don't work out for Ten Hag. But he's a coach. He's not a man. And this is my affinity with it. I don't like the title manager. I'm more like head coach. Head coach, distance himself. Listen, just coach the players. That's it. Simple as that.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
100%. Yeah, I agree. But for me, when you think about it, when did it all go wrong with these wages? It happened as soon as Ed Woodward came into the club. We started with this Disney Galacticos model, and I don't know, something happened. We didn't win anything in a couple of seasons, but we still wanted the biggest and the best names, the shirt sellers, and we gradually just improved with or what do you call it? Not improved, but the amount of wages just skyrocketed, and suddenly now we see a model that's not sustainable. I just want to share here for people to see the wage structure of Man United at the moment. I don't know if you can see this. I will try to make it a little bit. See in the top, there's Rafael Varane 350, Marcus Rashford 300, Casemiro 300. Okay, this is a little bit. I'll go up again. Casemiro 300, Jadon Sancho 275, Bruno Fernandes 250, Martial 250, Luke Shaw 200, Mason Mount 200, and so on and so on, and everything continues. Do you guys happen to know, for example, Mo Salah's wage?
80 grand. I think it's either 80 grand or 120k, and that just recently increased last season.
Yeah, I think he was
beginning.
originally on 120 max, and then because obviously Saudi Arabia was sniffing around, they had to pay him more money. But he's been there 5 years, so then I think they've gone over 200 at least. But FSG structure it where they don't pay players over 250,000 per week unless they want to keep you long term as an asset. That's what say they've done with Van Dijk, Alisson, for example. When you want key players to stay, you have to pay them more. But if they've earned it, you give them it. And if you don't want to pay them, do what you did with, for example, what they did with Coutinho, where they got rid of him for 130, 40 million euros, and then just reinvest the money in the team. And you've not got to pay that player over £300,000 a week that he was getting in Barcelona, and then he did nothing with his career. But there's no strategy. That's the problem with us. If you want to go with this wage structure thing, guys, is we don't have that strategy in place. And for people who fundamentally are financial experts, are supposed to be like Woodward and Arnold and all these guys, they've not been able to come up with a plan financially to suit where they save money on player wages. Like, you don't need to be a football expert to understand that. From a financial perspective, if you're an expert, you can just cut these players' wages in half, surely. You know the legal logistics and financial sides of it. You're supposed to be experts. You went to Bristol University studying economics and finance. So, Jesus Christ, where you got your different degrees from, guys? That's all I'm saying.
They don't even save money on negotiating to purchase players. They spend more. They rather spend twice the price for players than spend early.
I just see here Box comes in with a good comment. You say maybe 400k a week for Rashford would see him improve. So just throw more money on the fire and see what happens.
But Box, if we get that Rashford on 375, it's not 375 a week on.
Well, he's suggesting he should get the race. Maybe he will play better.
You go and make him play better.
No, he's just kidding. He's just kidding. I like that kind of humor. So good one, Box. But I just want to put it all together, because why I'm talking about wages. We all know about these wages. It's ridiculous. The wage budget in the club is astronomical, and we overpay for mediocrity. But this is the next part of the problem, because we are talking about Ten Hag. Ten Hag wanted this summer to get rid of a lot of the players, McTominay, Maguire, Jadon Sancho. We know he wanted to offload players, Donny van de Beek, but the problem is they are on such high wages that no other clubs can afford them. So we are stuck with them forever. And this is one of the biggest problems, because shifting out players, getting rid of the usual suspects. We saw against Newcastle, we played with, I think it was 8 or 9 of Solskjaer and Mourinho's players, even a couple of Van Gaal's players. The same players who have been throwing manager after manager under the bus. And this is one of the biggest problems, because people shout Ten Hag out now at the moment because we lost the game against Newcastle away. Okay, we didn't play well. I can accept that. But Arsenal lost against Newcastle. A lot of big teams lost against Newcastle at St. James's Park. But I think people react by the way we did it. But I would just point out that the players we have at the moment are the same players that have thrown all the other managers under the bus. And we can't get rid of them. How are Ten Hag supposed to fix this?
He can't do it by himself, surely. Like, he's supposed to be finding solutions to the performances on the pitch, like Tom say. I think we need to start looking at the real problems. Like, where are these financial experts who's supposed to be dealing with these issues? I mean, like, in one aspect, like, a player may score 40 GA last season. Of course, his contract up for grabs. But from my perspective, they had an option to extend for a year. They could have extended for a year and then make him play this year even better to get that big contract. You know what I mean? And I feel like it's those things are defeating us at the club. And he's the poster boy of the club. There's no hiding that. There's no denying that. Eric Ten Hag met him as the poster boy to the club, to be fair. Like, it's just the way it is. It always go and have club signings. It's just we would wish that the club signings would play as good as the manager signings. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, it don't matter to me where a player come from or how much a player is paid, as long as they're performing well on the pitch. I would hope that they're earning their money, or we're paying them too little for the quality that they're playing. Those would be the best circumstances, but it's just not the case at United. And to get back there, the only way he could do that is probably turn to the young players.
Yeah. But
I'll be right in the season off.
What I see as the biggest problems now is that we can't offload. People always mention Ten Hag has bought players for 400 millions. Yeah, he did, but the problem is we need to offload. We need to get rid of some of these players, because we know we need a new midfielder. We need a new center back at least. We need a new striker, but we can't afford them because the wage budget is maxed. And we need to ship players off before we can buy new ones, because our economy in the club is not good. Tom, how do we fix this? How do we offload players on these astronomical wages? Like, for example, Maguire. How do we do it without losing money? Is it possible? Oh, I'll ask the question to Mark then. How do we do it? How do we offload the players on the wages?
We have to lose money. We have to write it off. Being honest, right? I think that we will still be able to sell some of these players. It might not be for top value, But if you look at some players, Scott McTominay, Marcus Rashford, for example, those are academy players. Whatever we sell them for is pure profit. So if we get 30 for Scott, 60 for Marcus, that is 90 million. I mean, Marcus probably would 90 by himself, but at the same time, he's not at his best. And if we need to get rid, I think that coming up with getting 60 is about good enough. You could get 2 young players at 30 million apiece that will probably develop in a season or 2 to be worth double what we pay for them, and could even, if they're not great, they probably still will be worth at least 50 to sell on afterwards. I think it's reinvestment. We have to think about the losses, forget that we're not going to get top dollar for some of these guys, and just move them on. And I don't know if these owners are going to bite that cherry. That's the problem.
And this is what we can come back to all the way. We come back to the Glazers, because we know they don't want to get rid of the assets, because they are the valuation of the club, and the valuation of the club is how they get money, because they can loan money on the valuation of the club. And if we take a lot of losses, the valuation will drop, and then they can't get their money. So because they are using us as an ATM. So this is the problem at the moment. We can't take a loss. We can't get rid of the players. And when we buy players, we are not attractive, so we have to pay them off with astronomical wages. So we are in a bad circle that goes on and on and on. And of course, the manager won't succeed because of this, and we end up sacking another manager, costing us more money, and everybody's unhappy. Because the biggest problem is, how do we break the cycle? How do we break the cycle?
I would just interject slightly and just mention this comment, because I think it was interesting what Nigel Flynn has said here. I think it's important to remember, guys, we have won 8 games. Liverpool, City, and Villa have only won 9 games. City has only conceded 1 less goal in the league. Absolutely agree, we are bad at the moment, but we will be okay. And before Jarvis comes in on that comment, guys, take this time to go to Twitter and just, retweet and repost this status on at McRuby MUFC Realist TV status, please, guys. Share it along. It helps. It helps the channel grow. It helps us get to the next person and the next person. Thanks for taking the time, guys. Jarvis, what do you think?
Yeah, we need a miracle. That's the thing. We need Qatari to come in with the millions and billions, or we need a full sale at least. Someone who are willing to come in and take a loss and give us a clean sheet and start over again. because this is what we need. We are swimming in quicksand at the moment. So every time we try to swim, we sink a little bit more. And this is one of the biggest problem. I heard you use this analogy this morning, Mark, and I think you are spot on when you mentioned quicksand, because this is how I feel we are at the moment. We can't get out of it. I know when we come back to the Glazer discussion, but for me, it's important to mention, because when everybody is Ten Hag out, we got to remember what happened before we came into this situation. Now let's get back to football, and we have a team of players. We heard today that half of the group is Ten Hag out. They want the manager out. But I have a question for you, Mark, because I'm just gonna find here the question. First question: if players are unwilling to track back and put in the hard work, naturally the manager have to respond. But what about the accountability within the team? Because there should exist a, like I say, an internal justice in the group, who are grabbing the players by the scruff of the neck and telling them it's time to run. Where's the Roy Keane to take Marcus Rashford in the neck and lift him up to the wall and scream in his face and tell him it's not good enough, it's not acceptable jogging, you're letting the team down, you're letting the badge down, you're letting the fans down? Where is that player?
I don't know. You know what? If I have to be honest, I don't think a lot of people would like it, but I'll just say it anyway. It might not be the truth, guys, but this is how I look at it. Ronaldo did it when he was here in the season before and a half, right? And what happened to Ronaldo? He became the problem. He was too hard on players. He expects too much, He wanted the players to be working harder. He wanted them to be more motivated. He not seeing the energy, not seeing the effort levels. Which players he was talking about, guys? Like, come on, like Mason Greenwood was suspended at the time when he made those statements. So it can't be Mason Greenwood. It has to be players at the moment who was there. Now, if people pay attention to news reports, you would see that when Ronaldo left the club, Marcus Rashford had a report come out of like a small interview, and he said in the interview, I think I'm ready to step up and be the leader of this team and be the star of the club. You know what I mean? And
Right.
Well, I mean, for one season, he's done pretty much well, drawn level with pretty much the same stats as Ronaldo had the season before in our worst team. And this was when we thought United was turning the corner, but we seem to forget that Ralph Ragnick said, we need open heart surgery, 10 players in, 10 players out. We didn't have 10 players leave the club. At least starting players or players who was in and around at the time. Now, sure, Erik Ten Hag got players in, like, you said. And, like, yeah, the biggest thing for me is that the club not allowing players to leave. Like, that's the biggest problem, because that creating more and more toxicity. At the end of the day, look how many players they kept. They kept players from since Van Gaal here. It have players from Jose. It have players from 9 seasons ago. That's no. I mean, I don't want to be ageist or sound like if attacking players who've been there so long. At the same time, if you've been there so long, then you're supposed to be a leader. You're supposed to know better. You have more responsibility than other players at the club because of your hierarchy in terms of longevity. You've been there the longest. You're supposed to know what it means the most. And sometimes it's those same players that not delivering. I can't blame Luke Shaw. He's been out since the beginning of the season, really. He just came back and he's been doing okay. I know his performances will improve. We've all seen the turnaround in Luke Shaw. He went from being a size XL to a size medium in the space of six months. So you have to give it to some players who turn in a leaf. Like, I for one was going to give Marcus Rashford props the last couple of times before he got that red card against Copenhagen, but now it's like a total different thing. So it's more likely that if we could get players out, which is the biggest problem, which I mean, like selling them for top dollar is not a thing. at this point in time. It's about getting them out of the club. So what I think the real question is if Sir Jim willing to take losses to do those things.
Tom, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here, Kazmir.
Yeah. So what's your thoughts about the internal justice of the group? Why doesn't the group react when players are letting the team down?
Probably because they've got to work with them day in, day out, and they rely on them on the pitch. So from a sort of mental aspect, the players are going to side with each other, really. And it's happened before. They've got rid of managers before. Listen, even captains and stuff, they don't take accountability anyway. I remember, even if you go as far back as the Watford game, the last game with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Bruno Fernandez wasn't even the captain, but he was the one who was jeering up to the fans to say, listen, blame us as the players. But you should put it on your performance then, guys. Put it into your performance. That you shouldn't even get to that point. And at the end of the day, that Newcastle game, for the fans that travelled up to that Newcastle game, I've got a couple of friends who were in a box at one of the Newcastle guys, a couple of Geordie lads. And when they watched the game, at the end of the full time, all of Newcastle's players, win, lose or draw, they always walk round the stadium and they applaud the supporters, win, lose or draw, every single home game.
Yeah.
The Manchester United players for that particular game, they lost 1-0. Steve McLaren stood on the entrance of the tunnel and turned all the players around and said, no, you're going to the fans. Every single one of the players that tried to walk down the tunnel. And I won't name names because people can already see from the pictures if you've seen them on social media. You know who the players are and they know who they are. The players who can't be asked to give the fans who've travelled, Jesus Christ, have you even seen where the Newcastle away fans have to go to? It's like a hike to get up there. Let alone for some just Manchester United fans. But at the end of the day, minimum accountability. We went to the Fulham game a couple of weeks ago, guys. The fans put a banner up saying, play like you mean it. When a club and the supporters have to do that, as players, it must be embarrassing and it must be an absolute disgrace. Listen, we know with football clubs that go in turmoil who are at the bottom of the league don't even do that. Sheffield United just lost 5-0 to Burnley. I don't see their fans saying to their players on a banner, play like you mean it. But Manchester United, it's just arrogant. It really is from some of these players. And at the end of the day, in terms of the accountability, yes, some of them, they need to stamp some things out there and say, look, it's not on, guys. Fernandez, in this case, he should fight the manager's corner from a player's perspective and say, look, guys, put your differences aside either with one another or with this guy. We're playing for him. Yeah, if we agree with what he's doing or not, based upon the way that we're playing, I couldn't care less. We play the way that he wants to play. If we win the game, fantastic. If we play the way that he wants and we lose, yeah, that's fine. A decision can be made above us. But for the duration and the time that he's here, we play for him. And as we was discussing before, a lot of these players, most of them anyway now, to this point, are players that he's brought in and trusted in bringing in anyway. And some of them still want to down tools on him. So at the end of the day, if you want to hold accountability towards it with players, they know who they are anyway. As a player yourself, you'll know if you're having a good season or not. And you need to be able to motivate the people around you, even if you're having a shocking season. And there's players in this squad who have been here time in, time out, and we always have the same discussion every season. And like I say, I don't need to name names because everybody knows who these same players are. They've been here 5, 6, 7, some of them even 9 years, and they've done jack all for this football club. So what's the difference now? We've just got another manager and we're in the same predicament. So if we're going to go on this same saga with some of these players, get rid of yourself, guys. Go somewhere else and prove this guy wrong. Listen, Marcus Rashford, if you think you're better than this football club, go somewhere else and try and win a Champions League or a Premier League or whatever you want to go and win. Because my guess, Martial would go to France and he probably wouldn't do anything with the rest of his career. Marcus Rashford ended up washed up being a bench player at PSG. This is just how it is, guys. They would. And they might get top dollar to do that. That's fine. If you want to go and do that for your career, that's fine. But that's not what a Manchester United player would do. They would stay in siege mentality and they would fight for this manager. The levels that we had with certain players, Roy Keane, Eric Cantona's, Dennis Irwin's, players who'd run brick walls for any manager, regardless of who they were. So at the end of the day, players need to take accountability And if push comes to shove, guys, me personally, if I'm the captain, I'd say, listen, anybody who's late for training, you put your wages in the piss pot and you can donate it to charity. Minimum standards. Turn up to training, put 110% effort in. And if you're not cutting your weight, we're docking your wages as a side of the group. And if you don't do it, exile them out of the dressing room. It's as simple as that. You've done it. The manager's already done it with some players anyway. So why can't the players do it to one another?
That's a great solution, Tom. I completely agree, 100%. So welcome, Uncle Jimmy. Welcome to the panel and to the show. We can just keep on rolling. And this is the question: what standards have been set, and what role does the captain play in fulfilling the players' responsibilities? We all remember last week against Everton, Bruno, he gave Marcus Rashford a penalty at the end of the game, so he scored. I don't know what his thought was. Maybe he wanted his confidence to come back, and Marcus Rashford repaid the penalty by putting in a gash performance against Newcastle. How should the captain fulfill the player's responsibility, and what standards have been set?
Yeah, I think the problem we've got now is that the standards. Ten Hag sold us a pipe dream last season. You know, he made out that he is setting these really, really high standards, you know, getting rid of Ronaldo from the squad, you know, putting Marcus Rashford in the naughty corner for being late in training and doing all these things that we were like, yeah, these are the standards that we're expecting at this great club. Now, for me, I feel like he's not followed through with those standards, because I feel like I said at the start of the season, when we were in pre-season, I said, for me, if Ten Hag is smart, what he should have done at the start of the season is strip this squad back to the bare minimum. Because even if it meant that he strips it back to the bare minimum and he's having to use youth players, you know, having to use maybe the Amrabats or whatever, even if the results were bad, but he had stripped the squad to its bare minimum, where we're not dealing with the old players anymore. The players that we know for a fact that their mentalities have just never held up to standard. The players that we know for a fact, it doesn't matter what manager comes to the club, they're just never going to improve as players because they've already hit their ceiling. These players that we know for a fact are never going to be productive for our club. Get rid of those guys. Strip the squad back. Use whatever you're going to have left. Because even if the results are not great, as a fan base, we would have been understanding of the fact that, yes, the results are not great, but at least the squad is going in the right direction, because now we're starting the project. Because at the moment, you can't tell me we're in a project, because, well, who starts a new project with the same old tools that you used 4, 5, 6 projects ago? You can't. Yeah. When you're starting a new project, you have to start with new tools. So this ain't no project. This Ten Hag is in survival mode already because of the way that he's gone about things, because he's been too stubborn to actually strip the squad back to bare minimum, or he's only wanted certain players without considering how those players would fare in the Premier League in terms of whether they can adapt quick enough, because he knows that Manchester United, unfortunately, is a results business. It's not, this is a club where while you're building a project, you still have to get results. So if you're not getting the results, but there's also no project happening from what we can see, how can you explain that to the fans? How are we supposed to have any hope for any kind of future? Because we can't see anything that's happening. So standards wise, I think Ten Hag has failed himself, because I think the standards that he was setting correctly the last season, I think he's had to go back on those standards, because he's realized that this is a results business at Manchester United, and he's had to scrap all those standards, which has meant now that's filtered down to the squad, to the players. The players have got no standards. So how are they going to perform? They're not going to perform. So standards wise, that's what I think. I think in terms of the captain's role in the squad, I think there's been moments where I think Bruno has done the right thing. I think the Marcus Rashford thing was the right thing. I think for me, it was completely pointless, meaningless, to be honest, but I think it was the right thing to do. So I respect him for doing it. But for me, it's when Bruno's whinging, I feel like he's not whinging at the right things. It's like, you look at Garnacho, he's out of position. He's been out of position for 3 minutes. You're busy shouting at the ref because that player's clipped you a little bit. Just stop that. Tell Garnacho to get back in position. Don't worry about that. This is, for me, it's like his role. He thinks his role is just vocal, not tactical. You have to be tactical as a captain. You have to be, I've always praised Bruno for his tactical awareness. But as a captain, I feel like he doesn't use those kind of strengths that he's got in terms of his awareness of where players need to be to actually get the team to play the right way. So his role on the pitch, I think he's failing miserably because he's vocal, but just in the wrong way all the time. Don't argue with the ref. You know the rules. Just forget it. Forget the ref. Don't worry about the ref. Look at your team. Look at what's gone wrong. Why have we just conceded after scoring a goal? Why has that happened? Look at the manager. What do you think the manager wants you to tell the team? Do that. Be vocal, but be vocal in a more productive way. So I think Bruno's got a lot to learn as a captain. If he's going to stay as captain, I think he needs to maybe study the old captains at Manchester United and just see, because it's quite different being a captain at Manchester United to any other club, whether people like to admit it or not. It's a very, very different proposition at Manchester United because, you've got this club where the world is watching this club constantly. When things are going great, the world hates it. When things are going bad, the world loves it. So now as a captain, you have to make sure that you're helping your squad navigate through these really bad times. So, I feel like if he's going to stay captain, he's going to have to study what it means to be a Manchester United captain, and he's going to have to be very strict about that.
100%. I see here Angie, she gifted 20 MUFC Realist memberships. So I would just say thank you very much, Angie. You are a legend. Mark, can you read out the new members and give them a shout?
I don't have the list in front of me actually, but I'm going to pull it up. I'll read it out in a second. Tom, what is your thoughts on the question that was just posed to Uncle Jimmy?
Regarding what? Sorry, just repeat the question. I had a phone call.
The captain's responsibility.
Yeah, listen, the captain should take accountability for some things that happen. And I heard briefly what Jimmy was saying anyway, in the other end of my ear, with the players, especially Bruno, when you have the armband, you can have a bit of a whinge and a whine to the referee because you're the one who has the power in that situation because of the new rule changes to how you can approach referees or what, certain players can say to them and whatnot. But at the end of the day, with the way that Fernandez approaches it as a character, it's think about myself first rather than the team sometimes, because it's almost as if, a player kicks you, clips you, whatever, I've been given a foul or this, that, the other, when it more as a captain, just collectively say, look, you've lost out on the set piece or whatever, you've lost out. If the ball's gone for a corner, throw in, free kick, whatever, get your players and get a line going, get a wall in place or something, get set up. None of this complain, whinge, bitch to the referee. Just get prepared and get ready for the next phase of play. That's what you need to do as a captain. Yeah, if you think you're right, if it's something as far as you believe that you should have a penalty or something, fair enough. Yeah, that's all well and good, fine. But if it's just something measly like a free kick or whatever that's 60 yards away from goal, what's the point? He's not going to get you anywhere. And at the end of the day, with how Fernandez leadership-wise in this team, we're not really seeing a lot this season to go off of and say that he has performed well leadership-wise based upon the results. That is an issue at the end of the day. Listen, you can be vocal, you can wave your arms around and you can get in people's faces, scream, swear, shout, whatever. But if nobody's going to take notice of what you say, what's the point at the end of the day? There's some players, character-wise, they'll put the fear of God into you at the end of the day. And that's just good. That's just as good enough as having somebody's, shouting, swearing 50, 60 yards away from you. Just the name of a player can shit you up. Wait, you, for example, you're a young player at Man United. You go into a dressing room, you say, you're in there with Eric Cantona, you're in there with Roy Keane, players like that. Listen, you'd crap yourself in 5 minutes as a young player. You would. You go in there and say, Bruno Fernandes is your captain. You're probably going to say, what tunes are we having on in the dressing room, guys? Not it's Fernandes, right? I'm shitting my son here. That you don't have that fear factor with some of our players in the squad, and even if you're an opposition player coming up against it, like, do you honestly fear playing against some of our players? Probably not. No, you don't. If you're a number 9, do you honestly fear against playing? You know, no disrespect because he's been playing well recently. Harry Maguire and Luke Shaw is a centre back partnership. You don't. But if you go next to a Varane or a Sandro Martinez, fair enough. Martinez, he'll put the boot straight through you, and he won't give a crap about it. Varane won 4 or 5 Champions League medals, got the experience, pedigree. So with Fernandez on an overall aspect, this season's not been a good resume for him in terms of his captaincy. But this is what I'm saying behind the scenes. Listen, it's not just about being a captain on the field. You can do it off the field, training ground. You need to push players at the end of the day. And if some of these players are coming out and saying that, oh, we're finding it hard running, this, that, the other, have a word with them. Pull them to one side. I don't care. If you're a captain, mate, pin them against the wall and say, what the fucking hell's going on, guys? Because at the end of it, you play for Manchester United. And if you think running's the bare minimum at United, right, this isn't the club for you then. And as a captain, turf players out, just as well with the manager. And at the end of the day, if you have your captain's going to do that to a whole squad and discipline them just as much as the player, just as much as the manager will, that's brilliant for a manager. That's what they want. They want somebody who's going to show application, accountability, acceptability for the team. But at the end of the day, it can only go so far. And when you get to a point where, like the reports are saying, half of the squad's against the manager already, well, the captain's got to try and get them back on side then. Or if it's a no-go and it's a no-fly zone, right, we need to start going to the directors and going to the sporting director in place and say, listen, I'm the captain of Man United. These players ain't fit for purpose. It's as simple as that. But I want to stick by this manager because I believe in what he's doing as his captain. And at the end of the day, we don't know what happens behind closed doors, guys. But from what we've seen this season anyway, it's been a false flag, really, with Fernandez. But so we do need to see some improvements. And it's not, like I was saying, it's not just about shouting at players, but listen, tell people to get back in position, set up properly, be a bit commanding of, authoritarian, and just show your captaincy side of why you should wear the armband over other players. Because let's face it, guys, there's more players in this United squad that's won more trophies than Bruno Fernandes has. And that's experience for you. That's not not just shouting at players. They've been there and done it.
It's true, it's true. But we got to keep it balanced. It's not about like taking a dig at Bruno Fernandes per se. He's just
collectively.
Yeah, it's collectively, and I expect more from the group. It's the group should absorb players with bad performances and tell them out, and what do you do the next day on training after you lose? You should have more higher standards for yourself. They should talk among themselves, not depend everything on Ten Hag. Okay, I'll just go in my Ferrari, drive home and relax. All the heat is on Ten Hag. That's not fair because it's the players who's not performing.
But they just don't. They just, like just you saying that when you're describing it in that way, I can't see, I can't see any players in, maybe Bruno, but I can't see any players in our squad that would have that kind of desire to take that kind of responsibility on. Like, I just don't see it. They'd rather just let the manager take all the blame. They don't, I don't see anyone that's got that mentality in that squad. I can't see anyone. Not a single player. Not a single player.
Peter Day comes in there and say they don't have any pride, and that's what I feel at the moment too. So I think you're spot on, Peter Day. Good comment. Mark, is there any other comments here you want to bring out?
Well, first, I'm going to just welcome the guys who got the memberships. Yali Malmin, Kevin McGee, Madhouse, Madi R, Nico AV, Edward Reed, Abud Best, Hype Mode, Dazed 73, Greg Warby, Araya Daniela, Gray 100, John Malu, Mark Brooks, Nicholas Mathia, Quads Force Carl, Jeff Steele, Peter Digit, JP, and, Kevin McGee. So those are the 20 new memberships. Welcome to you all to the MUFC Release community, guys. Thank you for joining. Don't forget to smash the like and subscribe. And to be fair, guys, I think when we look at the history of the captains that we had at United, they have all different characteristics, but it also was in line with the era or that period of time in the years we had football. Like, we know what Roy Keane was. He was a bruiser. He was like that fear factor guy. Wayne Rooney was totally different. He was more like, I lead by example, that kind of way. And I think in the timing that we are right now, in the present time of football, I think you can't have a Roy Keane type captain. I think he won't even be able to play a game on the field. He would be red carded immediately. You know what I mean? For the tackles he's make. But at the same time, with all jokes aside, I think Bruno is not going to give that fear factor. But if you look at a player who's always available, is always willing to work hard and run extra, and play for the team, no matter what position you put him in, he doesn't complain. He accepts the responsibility. So whereas, his performances have not been great this season, he accepts the responsibility of the performances for the team. You know what I mean? And when he plays on the field, you guys, I'm pretty sure when he's having a great game, you can see the emotions, even when he's having a bad game. And sure, he quarrels a lot. He looks like he's fretting a lot with the referee and stuff. But it also looks like he's telling players, not to do this, not to do that, don't do this, don't do that. But some of the players, they don't really listen to him. But it's all about, there's different hierarchies in the team. Some players might look up to Rashford. Some players might look up to this player, Casemiro, Varane. You know what I mean? And Bruno is a captain, and he has to deal with all of those things. At the same time, there has to be some form of collective respect in the team. At the end of the day, you might not respect Bruno, but he's the captain, and you have to listen. You know what I mean? It's like the coach. You're playing for a coach. If you're not willing to do the basics well, why are you even on the field? You know what I mean? So, like, if you want to, the manager hasn't been getting results, but the captain, I think Bruno becoming the captain was not a bad idea. I personally might have liked Casemiro to be captain, but he was new at the club. So I kind of understand why Bruno became the captain and not Casemiro in that moment. While I think it's tough for Bruno to do a good job. I think you need to give him time. He might evolve into a better captain over the course of the season. It's still early. I just think that the standards at the club have been low before Bruno. And, it's like an uphill battle trying to get the standards to at least measure it with some form of consistency in the current scheme of things, because the players have been accustomed to just doing whatever for the longest. You know what I mean? They wasn't training properly for years. They wasn't expected to run as much or work as hard for years. So, these guys, they're not used to these things. So obviously, it's going to be a problem for them. So I think it's high time we start talking about the actual problem is if the new ownership that possibly coming in is willing to take a loss and get rid of the players that not willing to work hard, because it didn't make no sense to keep sacking a manager every 2 seasons, every 3 seasons. It's not going to work. We never go and have no dynasty again. Kiss the end of the United dynasty.
What I see, Mark, is the problem by sacking a manager without a foundation, without a DOF, without a good structure in the club. It doesn't do anything by sacking the manager.
Do you know what though? If they want to have a look, if they want to go down a short-term strategy, that's fine. Then they need to hire the right managers for that strategy. Don't hire managers that normally work on projects and you're trying to, but it looks like you're operating on a, try and get quick results basis. It doesn't work, because if you want to do that, then get your Contes, get your Ancelottis, get these kind of managers. Don't bring in your Ten Hags, because these guys want to do a project, but you're not giving them enough time and you're not supporting them. If you want your manager to do a project, you have to do what Liverpool did with Klopp, where they support him with that project and they allow him to get rid of the players he wants to get rid of. And if you look at even the older players that he was retaining at the time were very specific for very specific reasons tactically why he wanted them to stay at the club. Otherwise, they were all going. Really, really good players that he was letting go because he knew they just were not going to be suitable for what he's trying to do. But he was doing all of that based on what he thinks is right for the Premier League, which was the most important thing that he did. Was he always considered, can this player play in the Premier League or not? Doesn't matter how good they've been elsewhere. If you look at some of the links that Liverpool had at the time, and Klopp will say no, because he just knew that they might be good over there, but I'm not sure that they can do it in the Premier League. So that's these are considerations that you have to make at board level, and that's what that's why Manchester United will always fail. It's never going to go anywhere because there's no strategy at all. There isn't, just no basic strategy.
So what we have to do, we have to help Ten Hag succeed, or we could just sack him right away if we expect just a quick fix, a paper over the cracks, and winning games without a system, without a style or a identity. Then we can just bring in Mourinho again, or I don't know. There's other coaches like that who will, or Conte. He's available, as I understand.
If he goes in, if he went in January, for example, I wouldn't mind bringing Mourinho back in, just to finish the season, because when these players are not going to improve that much, so you might as well just try and get them to at least not lose games so much. So. So if you bring in a Mourinho, then you're just kind of trying to protect the season. So you're aiming to finish between 6 and 10, at least, and and you've survived the season basically. So you'd be in survivor mode to even start thinking like that. But for me, what's going to be telling is in January, if the board say to Ten Hag, we're not doing anything for you in January in terms of the squad, for me, they've given up on him.
Yeah.
For me,
I kind of agree with that sentiment.
They've given up on him. If they say, we're doing absolutely nothing for you in January, we're not letting anyone go, we're not bringing anyone in, squad's going to stay the way it is. For me, that's a sign that they probably are starting to give up on him. So that would be a worrying sign for me, and it should be for him as well. But if they try and do one or two things, whether letting players go to bring players up, whatever, maybe loan players, then I'll know that maybe they have got plans for him, obviously, for the summer. So for me, it will depend on what happens in January. That would be quite telling.
Yeah, it will. It will. I will save the Ten Hag in or out question for later. So just prepare your answer, guys. I just want to bring this up and talk a little bit about football again, because we have seen now why I believe why my question is, why are players starting to doubt Ten Hag? And this is a telling stat, because most shots faced in the Premier League this season, Sheffield United are last with 266, Luton 241, but Man United is in third by 213 shots faced. And we all saw this. I mentioned this after the Everton game. We won 3-0. Everybody was getting giddy and celebrated. But Everton, they had 22 shots, I believe, that game, 8 on target. And we won 3-0. So it told me a little bit about our defensive play. How are we structured? What went wrong? And how I saw it was that the wingers don't track back enough. They don't tuck in. We are not compromising enough in the central areas, and we are too open. And McTominay is always in the wrong place at the wrong time all the time. So speaking of tactics, is Ten Hag getting his tactics wrong, or is the players not understanding what Ten Hag is trying to do? Who want to go?
I don't know. I feel like, this is a weird question, because you can look at this from two angles, right? And I would take this side. I think that somebody else might have a different opinion from the other angle. But from this angle, I'm looking at it, the players should see this and be embarrassed. And I'm not talking about the defenders, really. Because if they had 22 shots and we win with 3-0, I think the defense did well. I think the attack, the entire team, barring the defenders, the midfielders, the attackers, this speaks on their work ethic. I think our stats speak on the work ethic of the players more than it speak on the tactics of the manager. Because if you look at all the games where we played well, even if we didn't get a good result, but we played well, we scored goals, we create lots of chances, even the ones that we win, that we did play okay. You're seeing for moments, 20 minutes FC, that the players actually stick to the tactics, stick to the principles, work hard. We look good, we could score goals, and then after they get tired. So for me, it's work ethic more than anything else. Of course, the manager makes some bad substitutions. I think it will happen in a game from time to time. He might get it wrong from time to time. And I think being in his second season, that's okay. If it is, it means that we're going to improve from that as the season progresses. So in a way, I could blame the manager a little bit, but I will blame the players mostly. And I would say that this is their poor work ethic and lack of ability to work hard and do the basics 100%, and show the fans what they're playing for with the badge on their chest.
Okay. Uncle Jimmy, you raised your hand while I asked that question. Do you have something to add?
Yeah, just for me, it's a bit of both. I think Ten Hag has got his tactics wrong quite a lot. I think it's been very evident because I'm not as tactically astute as I'd like to be. Sometimes I don't really understand tactics very well, but when I think it's been very, very evident that some very basic things have just not been done properly. I mean, when you look at games where we've scored first, for example, and then we've very clearly quickly lost control of the game, the manager's made no attempts to change the tactics enough for us to get control back of the game. He's kind of tried to insist with the pointless, disorganized pressing game when we're clearly losing control. You can't just try and press when you have zero control of the match completely. You can't. There's nowhere for you to start, so you have to try and get some sort of control back, and he just doesn't make any attempt to do that quick enough. He always does it too late, and then by the time he's doing it, the game's gone. The game, we've lost control of the game completely. The players have lost confidence, and it gets worse and worse and worse. So I think he's got his tactics wrong quite a lot. But I think the players need to take responsibility as well, because, again, some very basic things not being done properly. I mean, if you look at, when I watch Kobbie Mainoo play, right, and I hate using Kobbie Mainoo because everyone says he's just a young boy, stop putting so much, but he's the only player I can refer to in that squad who does these very basic football things properly. He just knows, he knows, it's very simple, isn't it? If you're trying to play out from the back, if a midfielder comes in, they do the press pass, the return pass. So if a midfielder comes, receives the ball, gives it back to you, spins around, you should try and be looking for that person to see where they're going. And what you get is that person attracts a few players to come out, and then some other players open up space. So if you're not going to look for that player, at least look for the next available player. We just don't do that. We don't do that. They do this thing where they hold on to the ball and they look around as if they've never passed a ball before, like they don't know what to do with it. It's very, very simple. When you look at Kobbie, gets the ball and it's very quickly either spin, pass, spin, move, or spin back. It just is very simple. But if he passes, he moves to get the ball back. And if everyone does that, that's when you get control of the game. Yeah. We just don't do that. That's not tactics. That's nothing to do with football tactics. That's just basics of football. You pass and move, you pass and move, you pass and move. It's not, I mean, I do that on Sunday, just pass, move, pass, move. It's really not that hard at all. I do it honestly, I play in midfield, boom, 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 boom. I don't like running. So if I get the ball, I'm going to pass the ball. I'm always going to pass the ball. It's very rare I try and beat a man. I'm always going to pass the ball. So it's just simple basics of football that we don't do. Yeah. So I think the players should be taking a lot of responsibility for it.
Yeah, I believe so too. A lot of players they hide, and we all talk about, for example, McTominay, he hides, but he's not the only one. There's a lot of players who hide. I can bring this out and show you the pass map from the Newcastle game. In Opta, as you can see here, most of the passes went from Andre Onana up until Luke Shaw, who played it into the middle to Bruno Fernandes. You see here the thickest lines. It's this one and this one. So this is our passing pattern: Onana, Luke Shaw into Bruno Fernandes. And we talked about this. We try to overload in the midfield to find Bruno Fernandes, and this is the only tactics that actually works with Ten Hag. We play with the 3-back line, and the opposite fullback tucks in. They double up on one of the midfielders, and Bruno received the ball. So this is what we have seen. This is a pattern that Ten Hag tries to do, but it doesn't work really well because it's like a one-trick pony. people understand. The opponent know that this is what Ten Hag is bringing. So in a way, it's very ineffective. So I think you're onto something when you say that, Uncle Jimmy, that the passing patterns are wrong. I just wanted to show this, and so you would know what I was talking about. What other players are hiding in the big games? Because last season he came in third. I saw someone in the comments mentioned he came in third, and we won the League Cup and we lost the FA Cup final. So we must have done something right. But the players who dragged us over the line last season was Casemiro, Varane, Martinez,
Right.
David De Gea.
Right.
But none of them are playing at the moment. So we are back to what I call the usual suspects.
Hey, don't forget Pastor Fred. Don't forget Pastor Fred.
Yeah,
Pastor Fred.
12 goal
Pastor
contributions, 17 GA overall this season.
Pastor Fred was
I
on
miss
some
that guy,
GA
you know.
madness at one point. He was on some GA madness at one point.
Yeah, speaking of Fred, was it the wrong decision selling him?
I believe so.
Well, I think so, yeah. Considering, yeah, I think so. I think you could say that, because for me, there's no point. There's no point in keeping some of these players that we've kept, is there? For me, obviously Maguire shouldn't be at the club. He should have been gone. So, Scott McTominay should have gone. This is what I'm saying, where you have to try and strip it down, because if you keep these players, you're going to be forced to use them the way that the club has always used them, because that's all they're good at. They're good at just playing momentary football where we might get lucky every now and again. They're not players that you can coach to play decent football. They're just not good enough. They're not good enough. They're just simply not good enough. So, it is what it is.
Yeah, I see Madhouse comes in there with a comment. He said, who did we replace Fred with? Was it Amrabat?
I would say it's Amrabat, yeah. So Amrabat would have been the replacement. But you can't tell me that Amrabat's been more productive than Fred. There's not a chance. No, I mean, he's going to get better. I'm quite sure that I'm quite confident, actually, that he's going to get better. But you can't tell me that he's been leaps. He cannot. Fred would start over Amrabat for me right now. Fred is starting over Amrabat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I will just bring in Milos Mitic, Kom Dobrevic, Jarvis, Mark, Dimsi Brodia, Prijac. I'm not sure what that means, but Dobrevic I know. So it means big up in Serbian. So big up Milos. I see here Ian McDonald comes in. He said Fred was the right decision. The problem is the players who haven't left and aren't being replaced. I think also that's a big part of the problem, because we wanted McTominay out, we wanted Maguire out, we wanted a lot of these players out and replace them with younger, more better players in a way. Todibo and what's the name of the centre backs we wanted to have come in? Yeah, Kim In Jae and
Kim In Jae. He for me that's a player that you go all out for. That's the kind of player, and I keep saying this about when I'm saying Ten Hag has shot himself in the foot a lot, even in the transfer window, because these are, for me, Ten Hag should have known that Kim Min Jae, he's a very good defender, strong, very, very strong, really, really strong. I mean, he will go up against any player physically. He would never have any problems in the Premier League. I think he's skillful enough to play in any way that any manager wants to play football. I think he's got the ability to adapt. I watched him play, filling at right back. They were playing a weird system, and he played at right back, and he just looked comfortable there. And I was like, I didn't even know this player could play at right back, but he's a good defender. That's the kind of player you go all out for, because he's going to be there long term, and he's going to suit your system, whatever system you want to play. If you wanted to start lobbing it forward, he can pass the ball. Short passes, long passes, he's good at either way. He can play any way that you want him to play. So that's the kind of defender you go all out for. But the club didn't even make an attempt to sign him. And I was disappointed. Very, very disappointed.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I know we had John Shin on this channel, and he talked a lot about Kim Min Jae, and I was sure that we were going to get him. He had what was the
His
cost?
clause
45 million, 48 million,
47.
something.
It
Not
was
too
tiny.
expensive.
Tiny.
Yeah.
It was peanuts.
But I think this was the problem with this transfer window. We didn't have the money to begin with because we used them all on Onana and Mason Mount in the beginning, and then we relied on selling players, but we couldn't offload them. So the transfer window was a mess from the beginning in a way.
We scouted Kim Min Jae for Bayern Munich. Some Lillis is just saying now, and that's a fact, because if you look at because we were going for him, and they knew how Ten Hag plays, and they knew how he would be used if he came to Manchester United. Bayern Munich just had like a light bulb moment. They were like, "Oh yeah, of course, we can play like that. We can," and that's literally how it happens with Manchester United. Is we've not gone for the players that we should go for, even if they're not big names or names that people are talking about. Just go for players that are going to come in. Look at Doku. Who knew about Doku before he came to Manchester City?
No one did, because Man City just go and they get the player that they know is going to be productive for the team. No politics, no riff-raff, no back and forth. Just go get the player, bring him in. If he plays well, Doku's played well, he stays in the team. If he doesn't play well, Phillips gets out the team. It's just simple. It shouldn't be a back and forth.
Ralph Ragnick knew about Doku. Ralph Ragnick called I could list 7 players off the bat right now. Could have been United players for less than 60 million pounds in 2021, 22. Enzo Fernandez, Julian Alvarez, Endrick, this guy, and Kunku, Gvardiol before he signed to Leipzig.
Gvardiol,
£8 million. We could have get him. We could have get Benjamin Sesko. You know what I mean? Even Lavia, we could have got, and Moises Caicedo, all of whom was scouted by Ralph Ragnick personal scouts. He offered them to United. He tell them, look, 40 million euros, I get these 5 players. They say no.
And you know what? With Ralph, that was another disappointing thing. Sorry, I know we're going off topic completely, but with Ralph Ragnick, I was disappointed because people celebrated when they said, "Oh, he's not going to stay at the club now in that technical role, in whatever role the consultancy role that he was going to take up." And people were saying, "Oh yeah, good riddance." What? And I thought, why would people celebrate getting rid of someone with very, very clear, demonstrable knowledge of acquiring top up and coming talent? I mean, that's if you're gonna change one thing at your at board level, that's the change you make. You get someone in that's very good at acquiring talent, so that even your whole scouting network starts with that person, and then it kind of filters out, because you find that then you're getting the right players into the club. Well, people were happy he was leaving. It was very strange for me.
But this, Jimmy, is one of the problems. I read a little bit about it, and someone told me that the Glazers have burned a lot of bridges with the big agencies and agents because they haven't paid up the agency fees. They are skimping out, so they're not doing their role. So a lot of agents and agencies won't deal with the Glazers. So United are actually not having these options of these young and up and coming players a lot of the time. So this is just what I heard and read. It's not confirmed, so take it with a pinch of salt. But yeah.
Fun fact, guys. Guess what formation Real Madrid has been playing and winning games for the last 5 games with? Guess.
Who?
4-2-2-2.
When
Ralph Ragnick brought that to United, everybody was like, this guy is crazy.
People were laughing at him.
Go and look at Real Madrid last 5 games where they score more than 3 goals in every game. 4-2-2-2.
People were laughing at my man, innit? People were laughing at him. They all laughed at Ralph when he played the 4-2-2-2. Even though I could see it working for a very long time. It was working. It was working all right. It was working fine.
It was working fine.
Everyone
Well,
laughed
the
at him.
problem is the players didn't want to run. They didn't want to have the high
Yeah, they
intensity
can't have
press that the Ragnick
Yeah.
wanted. We all know. We saw
Yeah.
it for one half against Crystal Palace, the first game, and everybody was, wow, is this 4-2-2 Ralph Ragnick football? But it ended very quickly.
It finished at halftime, and that was the last of it. That's the last we saw of that.
Biggest mistake United make in the last decade was getting rid of this guy, Ralph Ragnick. I mean, we want to fix this problem. That was the guy. That was the guy with the master key. He was going to turn all the locks and open every single door. And
He would have got us into so many places, man. So many places.
Yeah.
We need solutions right now. We focusing on all the things that we can't solve. Like the problem with the team, the manager is not really the issue. Of course, we could sit here and argue he could make better decisions. But I could sit here and argue that based on we start the season off with 16 injuries. He was on a slippery slope when it comes to making decisions and reshuffling his team from the get-go. And now that we're in the situation now, players come back, so the team flip now. So we have players playing more and, less players coming back from injury, and we're in a different kind of run of form, a different kind of, looking like the team playing a different kind of tactic. Because if you notice, right, when Kobbie Mainoo come onto the field, Bruno is switched to the left more than he's play on the right when Kobbie Mainoo not on the field. The entire midfield is worked differently with Kobbie. So for me, it's like, in a way, when I look at it, it's like we don't even know what the real setup was for this entire season, because it looked like the key was missing all the time, and that's our youth man, Kobbie Mainoo. And it's hard to say that because he's only 18 years old, but when you look at the way the team is organizing the midfield now, it's completely different to what we was doing 2-3 games ago. So all these things are to be taken into consideration, and I trust the manager. It might be blind faith, at the same time, because some guys would say, he's won nothing big, no big trophies, never managed big players before. But everybody's had to start somewhere, From before you could walk, you had to creep. You know what I mean? Before you could run, you had to jog. So at the same time, I just looking at the perspective that if this guy was to get a few players out the door so that he could kind of send a message to the squad that, listen, if you don't want to be here, I don't want you here, the exit will be there for you. You know what I mean? Then I think the team will start to function better, because the fact that he was unable to remove some players, it kind of show him up on his power and on his standards and the messages he was trying to send. It make it seem like, hey, he's just all talk, because the real boss is saying he can't do nothing. You know what I mean? So it's like, damned if you do, damned if you don't. It's a tough one. And I really don't want to make any excuses for the manager, because I want to win. As a United fan,
we all want to win. We all want to win. I see Raiden Frost comes in here. He said, no, Almac comes in and said, possession football isn't just down to the coaching. It requires players that are press resistant and can pass and are comfortable on the ball, as Kobbie Mainoo, for example. And we lack the technical players to implement. And that's 100% fact. So at the end of the day, who is to blame? The Glazers, the club, the players, Erik Ten Hag. But I think Ten Hag saw this after the 3 first games last season, and he changed his style and just went in to win. And maybe that's where he went wrong. But if he hadn't, maybe he wouldn't have lasted as long. So it's hard. I see here Peter Day comes in with a question. So, gents, would you bench Watford or completely drop him out of the squad against Chelsea? We may need him.
I think it's about that time, I think it's about time Erik Ten Hag sit down and look at this, take a long, hard look in the mirror for his own good. Because, like you say, Jarvis, he maybe look at it after the first 3 games last season and say, you know what, bro, with this 25 players, I cannot implement the Ajax style. You know what I mean? I have to make a hybrid for this to work, because these players, they don't have it. It might have 5-6 players who could do it. Let me say 7 to 9, maybe, if you include some youngsters. But the rest of them, they're not up for that. So when you look at that comment there, Rashford needs to be dropped completely. He needs to go on vacation for 3 to 6 weeks. and return after that, and then he could start back training and get back into the squad and hopefully make himself a
But Mark,
starter.
don't you think Rashford has influence into the group? Is one of the senior players who have been here the longest, except from Luke Shaw. He's number 2 on that list. Wouldn't it be hard for Ten Hag to upset Rashford even now because he's struggling with this group of players? Would they go against him?
I think so, but at the same time, I'll just, for matter's sake, at the end of the day, Rashford will always have an influence. He break out as a young player. Young players will look up to him. He's an academy product, so definitely everybody would, he's the poster boy of the club. The boardroom loves Marcus Rashford, right? So, in my honest opinion, it's hard to go up against a player of that stature, especially even if it's Ten Hag. I don't think Pep could go up against certain players if he didn't have the wealth of championships that he had. You know what I mean? If he was just in his second or third year coaching a big club, I don't think he could go up against certain players in the club. It's the same thing with Mikel Arteta, But this is the point where the DOF had to come and step in, the CEO had to step in and say, yo, yeah, this is going down, because we had to back the manager. And until they start doing those things, then it's always, for me, they're always hanging this manager out to dry from since the first season. What do you think, Jimmy?
I think it's hard to defend Rashford at the moment, just in terms of form. It breaks my heart, because when you're seeing all these clips of top defenders saying who's the hardest player you've ever played against, and they're all saying Rashford's the hardest player to play against. So, because for me, I think the best attackers are the attackers that frighten the life out of defenders. So that's, for me, that's the biggest strength an attacker has got, is defenders are nervous when you're approaching them with the ball, because they just can't figure you out. And it looks like that's how defenders view Rashford, but we don't see that, because it's almost as if, yes, he might have been a problem for that defender in that moment, but actually what he's done after he's been a problem for that defender is non-productive. He's wasted the ball, or he's then tried to do something that hasn't gone anywhere. So it's a real shame, because that the potential was always there for Rashford to be, up there, be mentioned with your Mbappes and these kind of players. And I mean that literally. I'm not trying to be dramatic about it. I think for me, he's displayed enough qualities to have been having the same conversations that we have about your Kylian Mbappes, because of the profile of player that he was showing us that he was. But it's just not working for him, and it's a real shame, because I think he's got everything, like you were saying, he's a kid that's grown up from the academy, come into the team. And it's not just that he's come into the team and he's played some good football for us. He's been, he's given us some exciting moments. It's also what he's done off the pitch. So it makes him even, a more attractive proposition for a club to hold as, as one of your great ones that's ever been at the club. Unfortunately, because he's not performing, he might not leave that kind of legacy at the club. And I think it's a real shame. I really think he should be working on himself a lot more, taking, individual analysis, paying for individual analysis. I think he should be doing more work with himself. I think he should be forcing conversations with the manager. That's what players used to do. Yeah. You look at Nani. When Nani came to the club, he plays, doesn't start first game, obviously. It starts, comes on second half in the second game, then doesn't play the third game because Sir Alex wasn't happy with his performance. But then, what does he do? He went to the manager and he said, "What did I do wrong?" So Alex talked about this. He went to the manager and said, "No, I thought I played really well. Why have you?" So the manager told him exactly why he didn't play him, and he changed everything that the manager told him to change immediately. And look what happened. Even though he wasn't always a starter, but he's a legend of the club because he was working on himself constantly.
I actually don't know. I mean, I like Marcus Rashford. I think he's done some good things. I don't think he's done enough to etch himself into that level of our United player yet. After 9 seasons, I think he's still left found wanting, in my honest opinion. last season I thought, yo, this is the start of something. This is the start of this is the Marcus Rashford we waiting on 8 years for. This is the guy. He's arrived, you know. And then this season is like back to reality. And I could only think to myself, the last time I see him in such good form, his contract was up for negotiation a few seasons ago. But in all honesty, if I was to be honest about my favorite player out of the academy in the last 10 years, I would have to say is MG11. And I wouldn't say it out loud because, you know, a lot of people have an issue. And it's a sensitive topic. But at the same time, for me, this is what you would say a United Academy graduate should be like. Somebody who is diabolical, whether it's left foot or right foot, coming at you in attack. You know what I mean? And I think Marcus Rashford needs to go and look in the mirror and try to understand that football doesn't work that way. It's not FIFA. You can have that card that mark up your rated 88 or 92.
But Mark, I want to be a little bit of the devil's advocate because Rashford now gets a lot of heat because of his performance. But we know he's best on the left side, cutting in and try to shoot, because he scored a lot of goals last season. He haven't performed this season. He's put in some dreadful performances. But shouldn't we as a fan base back our highest scorer last season? And in another way, you know, now Ten Hag plays him on the right. And he's a left winger. He's not a right winger. He even said himself in interviews that he can play all over, but he finds the right side the most difficult because of the angles, because of the runs. And we all heard him say that, and that was years ago in interviews. So in a way, is Ten Hag setting him up to fail now by playing him on the right?
Well,
I don't think so. I think he is. I don't think he can improve playing on that right-hand side, because at the moment he needs to improve. If you want your player to improve, the last thing you want to do is play them in the wrong position. How are they going to improve if you're not playing them in their best position? That makes to me, this is another one of those decisions that Ten Hag's made that I think, I'm sorry, that doesn't make any sense. You can if you explain it to us, maybe we'll understand. But for us non-football managers, this makes no sense whatsoever. You know, so tell us, if you explain to us, we'll understand.
I have a question though, Jimmy. I'm posing this back to you, Jimmy, right? Is Marcus Rashford actually a winger though, or a forward? Because from my perspective, a winger by definition means he's going to average, a top winger, right? By definition would average 10 to 15 assists a season. He has never done that in his career. Never. Not one season, not two. Never. It's never happened.
He's a wide forward.
Okay, so in my honest opinion, if he's a wide forward and you're right-footed, to be fair, I mean, it's going to be harder. Now, don't get me wrong. I think it's going to be a monumental task for him to improve his game playing off the right. But what I also think is, if he was to try to take up the challenge, it might benefit his game overall. Because as you see on the right, he don't cut in and to look to score as much. He's tried to look to assist, which might benefit his game if he go back on the left. But if you're being fair to Garnacho, Rashford can't really start ahead of him on the left right now with the current performances that he's doing. You know what I mean? Even his worst performance this season is still better than Rashford's best performance this season. So, in my honest opinion, I would have to ask, you know, I think Rashford only scored those goals because he was playing as striker, which I think suddenly, in my opinion, probably is the role that suits him best. What do you think?
I just want to say I'm a little bit conscious about time. We are rounding the 90-minute mark. We are on the injury time at the moment. So I just want to go with the big question. The big question for Uncle Jimmy and Mark. So Uncle Jimmy can go first. Are you Ten Hag in or out, or do you sit on the fence?
No, I'm Ten Hag in still at the moment. At the moment, I'm still Ten Hag in, just because something's got to give. There's no way it's this bad because he's this bad. I can't understand it. Just even tactically, when I look at the way that Ajax team played, people are saying, "Oh yeah, but it's a different league." But just tactically, they were so good tactically, such a good tactical team. So I have to see what else he's got. I have to believe that, you know. there has to be something else. So I'm Ten Hag in at the moment.
No, so we give him the benefit of the doubt. You believe he has more in his locker. He can turn this around.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, Mark.
I have to say, I agree with Jimmy. You know, if I look at Ajax, I've been watching Ajax for the last couple of seasons. Like, let me say four seasons now. Watching Ajax consistent. Even before he was linked to us, I was like, this guy is doing something. And, you know, watch them play against Real Madrid and how the team perform. The one thing I could say, though, is that team had a group of highly footballing, intelligent players. Every single player from the starting 11 to the substitute bench had a high football IQ and they could read the game. So it's a bit different. But I think Erik ten Hag, you know, I mean, I just think, to be honest, the way he's going about this rebuild after realizing whatever he realized after the first 3 games last season, I think when he said maybe he thought he could do it in 18 months or 2 seasons, I think now is a 4-season situation. Like because he have to remove more players and get rid of some more players than he thought he would have, because he maybe came in thinking he would get a high work rate out of some players that's still there. He might get the best out of this player, get the best out of that player, and then he just have to chop and change a few. But now it seems like he had to chop and change way more than he thought. So he just reacting to that. Ten Hag in is my opinion.
Ten Hag in. Yeah, for me, I believe that that we need to give him a little bit more time. But I have addressed this a lot of times in the post-match games and the analytics of the games, that he needs to change. He needs to change his way. He needs to be more defensively set up. He has to play 2 holding midfielders. That's been we lost Uncle Jimmy.
Yeah, his battery died, guys. He forgot his charger at the office, so he wasn't able to plug in his laptop.
Okay. Well, at least he got to answer his final question. So for me, the next month, I believe Ten Hag needs to figure out what to do with these defensive problems, because we can't keep letting the opposition have 20 shots per game. We need to be more stable, because now it's wide open, and we can't play like this. It's not sustainable. We will lose games after game after game if we let the opposition have 20 plus shots every game. So in a way, we need to be more precise on the ball. We need to be press resistive. We need to be better on passing the ball, and we need to understand, because as you mentioned, Ajax and Ten Hag, he had 2 players in that team that was excellent, and that was Daley Blind. He could fill every role from in the midfield and defense. And he had in attack Dusan Tadic. He could fill every role in the attack and midfield. So we had 2 players that could fill in everywhere in the total football, because that's how you play total football. You know, you can run everywhere, but you got to understand, sometimes you have to play as a center back, sometimes you have to play as a striker. It's just the way it is. So this is what Ten Hag is lacking at the moment. They need a couple of more intelligent players who know where to fill in and why. So for me, maybe he needs a couple of new players, but he also needs to tighten up the ship. But at the moment, I'm Ten Hag in. I will give him the benefit of the doubt.
You know, as you mentioned that, Jarvis, not to cut you, as you mentioned that about the 2 key players in his squad. Our 2 key players is Bruno and the Butcher.
Yeah, and we have lacked one of the key players for a long time now, and that make Ten Hag struggle. I see here Madhouse comes in. He said, "I loved Blind." Yeah, it's a shame that we sold him, but he's one of the 2 players that we have sold with a profit, I believe. David Blind and Dan James, I believe.
Yeah, Dan James, 2021.
Yeah.
Highest sale for Man United.
What is the VAR room saying? Are they Erik ten Hag out, or are they in?
I see a few guys in here have been saying Erik ten Hag out. You know,
Nick Nash comes in and say Erik ten Hag out. Milos comes in, out. Erik ten Hag. Madhouse comes in, Erik ten Hag in. 95%. A little bit on the fence, but 95. I'll take it.
yeah.
So the VAR room,
I see Stephanie Griffith is saying assess the manager at the end of the season. Rajat is saying 93% Ten Hag again.
No, a little bit better. No, but in the end of the day, we don't decide this as fans. The Glazers do at the moment because they are the majority of the board. We heard today some waffle from Sky News that next week, guys.
Next week he's
Radcliffe and his 25%. I will share the tweet and we can see it by breaking news. Manchester United and Ineos have penciled in early next week to confirm Sir Jim Ratcliffe stake 25% of the club. So that's Mark Kleinman at Sky. Do we believe that this is it next week, or have you heard it before?
Yeah, well, it was supposed to be this morning, Jarvis. We covered that in the news segment this morning because they said Jim Ratcliffe in today, Monday morning. So I don't know. Every week it's another week. It's 2 weeks, 2 to 6 weeks, 2 to 8 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks. I don't know.
Yeah, this is it from Sky. I'm getting tired of this takeover. I just want it done with.
And I just wanted to end. I don't care who wins now. I am still will say and forever hold the full sail line. I will tow that to the end of the road because I believe that the only thing will see us in a better situation is a full sail. It don't have to be Qatar, guys. It could be anyone as long as they're buying 100%. You know, that's why I think it's the fans deserve, in all honesty.
I think we all wish for the 100%, but at the moment it looks like 25 and Ratcliffe in. But we don't know the deal yet. We don't know if we will buy more. But as soon as it's released, we will know. So we all hoping for at least a 69% and get the Glazers out. That will be the bare minimum, I believe. 100%. I see Madhouse comes in and he say maybe April 1st next year. April Fools.
SPK is saying Sir Jim is the new Mike Ashley. Hope not. That's a real tough joke, bro.
Yeah. Who is the worst? Mike Ashley or the Glazers? I would say the Glazers.
I would say the Glazers still, you know. Stephanie Griffith is saying we have 60 likes, Jarvis, and you know, I don't know if it's that time, but maybe we should close the shop tonight. You know, I thank you for allowing me to join you tonight.
42 minutes, so I think it's time to end the show. I just want to thank everybody for watching. I just want to say thanks to the VAR room, a lot of great comments, and I would say thanks to Tom and Uncle Jimmy, and of course my co-host Mark Nurse.
Thanks for having me, Jarvis.
So, do you want to shout out your socials?
Well, you know, you could always find me on Mufc Realist TV, Jarvis, or you could check me out on Twitter or on YouTube at United Marks. That's my YouTube name for some reason, you know, not Mark N. But you know, guys, thanks for joining us today. Thanks for all the support. Stephanie Griffith, always a legend. Thank you for the memberships. Thank you for growing the community so much. Madhouse, all you guys jumping in, Lucky Singh, Peter Day, Evo Bosich, Illis, Royden Frost, Abels, Almac, SPK, Red U, Milos Mitic, can't not leave you out, bro. You know, you're always here, even on the news segments early in the morning, bro. Do you even sleep? Almac, shout outs to you, my bro. Shout outs to Welsh Girl, Rajat, Abels, you know, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. Jarvis, you know you're the man. Thank you for having me on. You know, I hope everyone had a good time. Leave your comments in the non-live section. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. You know what I mean?
And that will be the final words. So peace out, guys. See you on the next one.
That's all, folks.
Thank you so much for stopping by and watching Mufc Realist TV. Don't forget to like and subscribe and follow us on the socials.